Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit. It is Friday, May 6th, 2022, coming to you from Detroit's beautiful North End, where spring is sprung. There are tulips outside of the studio, some grass too. But, I am excited because I think it's happened, Devon. I don't think we have another snow coming.
The tulips have indeed popped. I've seen them both in my backyard and around. Spring has definitely sprung. The weather's great, and it's here, Jer, just in time for, the early May and Cinco de Mayo. We're here in spring, and I'm actually really excited to be here.
Well, Devon O'Reilly, what do you have as your cocktail?
Well, we usually kind of trade our different cocktail things. I'll tell you what, for listeners' sake, you and I just saddle up to the Daily Detroit bar and grab whatever looked appealing to us.
Yes, thank you, Randy Walker, for always making sure that it's arranged, as well as our listeners for helping keeping it stocked. And seriously, we will take donations of booze bottles.
Oh, yeah, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, for sure.
So I grabbed a look appealing to me, which was always the that of the brown kind, and I got myself some Butcher's Cut Bourbon from Detroit City Distillery. I know it's going to be smooth. I'm well acquainted with Butcher's Cut Bourbon, and I just throw a little into a glass because that's all you need.
Me, I've got the Gilded Age vodka with Faygo orange. That's right, just mixing it right in the bottle.
That is a very Detroit, a very gilded cocktail, I might add. A very luxurious vodka with a bit of a gild of the orange Faygo. Is interesting.
Listen, it is a long time thing that I have done, whether like when I used to do slow roll and things like that. You just, put the pop bottle in there. You're good to go.
Oh, it's great. I mean, you could take that around and no one would know you're drinking something more than just Faygo orange.
Although for the authorities, I'm never leaving my property, of course.
Of course. Jared's bottles are always they're always what the label says.
Right. We're not going to make the same mistake as that weed vending machine on the west side. So there's just a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. First off, I want to say, Devon, you were right. You nailed it when it comes to Fairlane Dearborn. I am very excited to hear about the possibility, not confirmed, but possibility of residential on the old giant parking lot at Fairlane because, parking lots are pretty much like the worst use of space possible, especially the old school ones that don't kind of have permeable surfaces and whatever. To see more residential, going with the other residential we've talked about before, going with the Rouge River improvements. What is going, this feels like something's moving.
This is a lot of residential ultimately. And Jerry, I'll take some credit. It was a little bit of kind of informed speculation, but I hope any reporter listeners can get some credit with them for scooping a little bit of this. But I did talk about it in the last episode. Fairlane they've got a great new ownership group. It seems Centennial. They're going to put a lot of money into Fairlane, not only in the stores. Like I mentioned, the stores are getting upgrades. Fairlane's getting a facelift, but it's also getting some major investment when it comes to outside of Fairlane and this huge parking lot that rings it. Because of course, it's almost, you think about it of kind of like a downtown Detroit scenario where, there are parking spaces, more than enough parking spaces for Fairlane Mall and all of the encircling businesses around it to be full. That's just not that's not a real thing that can happen anymore. Right. So there's lots of space in the parking lot, and we're going to see more residential in that parking lot space, but also some cool stuff too, like the Ramadan festival that we saw this past month.
What I like about this is a trend towards reusing these giant plots of land to something interesting. I'm curious, and I want to get him on the show, Mario Kesey, who's doing the thing over at Oakland Mall. Then you've got the stuff happening at Northland, which is turning into more residential. I don't love as much what's happening in Eastland, though I get why. It's going to become more of the industrial kind of space situation. I get why, but I'd rather see something that's more human scaled.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jared, because I think you're right. You could take the land and turn it into something more industrial, something more warehousey. But at the same time, when you think about why those people built malls where they did, it was around urban centers or suburban centers, I should say, where there's a lot of easy thoroughfares to get to and from the mall, a lot of access to people. So it's like you have these areas where it's easy for the people around it, the residents around it to get to, and people from other suburbs to get to. So it would make sense to put something there that is going to be accessible to the public.
For sure. And we're going to have a lot of development talk on an upcoming episode. Robin Runyon from Urbanized Detroit's coming back on Tuesday.
I can't wait to listen and always love Robin on. And we'll have a lot more to react to after that.
Let's also react to the news that a couple of long-standing businesses, one longer than the other, but both kind of pillars in the culinary community, Astro and Ochre, will be no more. They made an announcement on Instagram May 15th. This is something that has gotten a lot of plaudits, both Astro for their coffee and then Ochre got so much attention in 2019 and some other times in magazines. I am somebody who frequented both places. I will share some of my own personal memories about it, but to me, I think this could easily be misinterpreted as a bad sign when I don't think it should be.
And I think we also need to do a little bit of clarifying here, because when you and I first discussed this story, when we were kind of just sharing it around, I'll admit I was a little confused because I saw Astro and Ochre closing, and I said, "Oh, I know Ochre. I know it's got national play. It's got a well-known history there. Astro, I think of as like Corktown Astro." And I said, "Well, I was at Astro Coffee in Corktown 2 weeks ago. It didn't seem like it had been dormant or closed."
Well, they did go through a hibernation, they called it, for a while
Okay.
during the pandemic, where they kind of consolidated things up by Ochre, and I patronized both. And then they kind of put their words back out there, their feelers back out there to Corktown. As I understand it, all of it's going to be gone.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
All of it. Both
so we're
locations.
losing the Astro and the Ochre combo. That's off of Grand River, and we're losing the Corktown Astro.
Well, I believe that they had moved that over, like moved their focus. But yeah, that's
It was it was open though for a while.
Well, yeah, it was open for a while, but I think that's the thing. And to me, I think this opens up a wider discussion. I know a lot of people are sad about it. I'm sad about it. Years ago, my now senior dog and I, it was my ritual to go from our flat and walk down to Astro, get some coffee. I'd tie her up. It was one of her most exciting things where I'd tie her off and go get her a water and I get a coffee and we'd walk down there and it was super awesome and see people and walk back. And like, losing it closes a chapter in my life. But this is something where I think the preferences of business owners and what people create are kind of changing generationally. And a friend of mine mentioned that this is much more of a studio. And both of these places were much more of a food studio. They weren't businesses that necessarily scaled because they required so much talent. And if you think about how long Astro has been around, 11 years, think about what you were doing 11 years ago in your life. And I wonder if the day or the age of that guy owning, say, a sandwich shop or whatever until he's in his 60s or 70s is over. And I wonder if this is more of a situation where looking forward, you're going to see a lot of creative people do different things throughout their career, kind of an unmooring of the creativity from the business name.
Well, I think you're right, Jer. I think it goes along with the conversations that we've had before on this show and that people have about kind of this massive shift in the workforce and how people think about work. And very rarely now do you encounter people, millennials, even Gen X, who seem to think about work as a single purpose throughout life, that you do one thing, even if it's open a business, that you do one thing throughout your life. Everybody seems to have this type of focus or this type of feeling that they'll try a few things. They'll see what they like. If something's successful, they'll do maybe more of that, but different. If something's not successful, they'll do something else. And I agree with you. I think that has matriculated to the small business community. And people don't look to just say, my goal is open one shop and then scale, which was the old kind of model and the old goal. It's something new. And I don't know where that goes, because what you do then is you lose some really interesting entrepreneurs, and you hope that those people who do decide to do something different, Ochre and Astro, you can only hope, or I can only hope, that they do something new and interesting, but they still do it in Detroit.
Look, Daisuke and crew, wherever they go, I will patronize them because they do great work. And I think this is part of that rise of chef culture, the unmooring of the chef from the restaurant. You're seeing this more and more with different places, even Detroit. Now we're getting restaurant and talent that they got a Michelin star somewhere else, and now they're coming here and doing something. And I think it cross-pollinates. I think long-term it's a good thing, although like emotionally, we're so programmed to see like, is it failing? Is it not? And I think there's been a wave of Detroit businesses, and they're all around the same time. Not only did you have the pandemic, not only is it really hard to find staff, whatever you're paying. Like, I understand the whole $15 an hour thing. I'm telling you, when I talk to business owners, they're paying way more than that, and they're not finding people in certain areas. There is a systematic labor shortage. Inflation's higher, like all the things. It's stressful running a thing. Let me tell you, I run this thing. It's stressful as hell on a regular basis. And I understand someone saying, hey, you know what? I want to change something in my life. I want to focus more, stuff like that. I'm not saying that's what I'm doing, but I will say that, like, I get it. And even if you look at bigger businesses, they build up to the point where there is a team or there is a succession plan, or the founder often goes into another role and there's another CEO brought on. Like, even think about things like Google. They had another CEO for a while, and all those different things I think that shortens your burnout stick. Like, if you think about your candle and getting burned out, and I'm not speaking for them because I haven't discussed about this particular case, but I'm kind of amalgamating my experiences and conversations with multiple people. You've got a candle and you burn it so much, and the more stressors on it, they increase that burnout stick. And it's really hard to build teams and do things. And when you're an artist, you want to make art. You don't necessarily want to build a team, you know?
We should also kind of give them the respect that they do, that 11 years is a long time for any business, any storefront, whether it's Detroit or whether it's any city. And you mentioned about thinking about 11 years ago. Think about what Corktown was 11 years ago. It was a kind of developing, still very underdeveloped area. You had Slows. I think you had Mercury by then, but Mercury was just kind of getting started. So Astro was really an OG of that strip. And to lose them is really tough. And the only thing I'll say to that, the silver lining, I hope, is that now Corktown has become such a thing that I don't believe that storefront will sit vacant for very long, because there is a demand there now for a coffee shop or bakery or something of that sort.
Functioning cities grow and change, and that's part of the fabric of a city when you have city life. I did want to mention a closing that I became aware of. It kind of went under the radar. A listener pointed out to me, because Michael lives near it. Rusted Crow in downtown Detroit is done.
Good intel, Jer. I had not heard that.
Very quietly. I always thought that concept was an interesting choice for that location.
I think it was a feast or famine. You know, we talk about, I think when we've discussed Rusted Crow on the show, it's been as, this is a great place to go before and after Tigers games and Lions games and even Wings games and Pistons games, stuff at LCA. And I think they probably, and I've been there at least a dozen times, the times that I was there during games, it was crowded. I'm sure they did fantastic. But the alternative of that is when there was no game going on, when it was a weekday, I don't think they maybe had a handful of customers the whole night.
Well, that's part of why I think we need to rethink the development in that area. That's why I'm glad to see some more apartments go in. We need even more. And you look about all the area with the District Detroit, or whatever, Illich Village that I sometimes call it. It's so key to get people there and design the area for more than just the stadiums. Chicago Reflection. I went to Wrigley. It is a complete neighborhood.
Yes, Wrigleyville. It's a thing.
It's Wrigleyville. Now, is it fancy? Yeah. But like you can exist there. There are things that exist there that are not just the ball game. And trust me, there's ball game kids. Don't get me wrong. And that attracts people. But you look at those parking lots that are right next to Comerica Park. Those need to be buildings. You look at the parking lot that's across the street, that's across from the Opera House. That should be a building. Like, I look at these things and go, there needs to be more density. And of all places in the city, we could have the density argument. The one I don't think you can is right near Capitol Park, Grand Circus Park, that whole area. There's any part of town that should be okay with all the density. That's it.
You're right, Jer. I mean, if anything, it should be there. And we need more density there. And so I think about the Royce, another place over there, and places like Rusted Crow. I do feel like they were probably anticipating a lot more build out. Look how long it took to build that old Statler Hotel development. Look how much they still haven't developed in the District Detroit, and that was all supposed to be residential. There should right now be 1,000 more people living in that Grand Circus Park area than there are. But it's just a fact of developments were slow. Development stalled.
Do you remember that there was going to be a Shields Pizza there for the longest time?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That whole thing, and then that moved up to Midtown. I don't know how well they're doing up at the Maccabees.
I don't think well, unfortunately.
It's that thing where time is money. And we've had a number of developers on the show, whether they're big or small. When the money's lined up and things go, like, the project happens. And I think that we have to speed up the pace of things. Now, on the opening front, we're talking about retail. Rihanna is opening their Savage X Fenty store. I don't even know how to say it. Like, I don't know how to say that.
I
Savage
think you
Fenty?
just say Savage Fenty. I think that's how you say it.
I also don't buy the things that are in Savage Fenty, which is some amazing lingerie and things like that. I mean, I looked. I don't buy it, but enjoyable. But they're opening a store in Detroit. They're also opening stores in Chicago, Long Island, Newark, Delaware, St. Louis, Atlanta, and New York. So this is part of like a retail push by this brand. Crane's Detroit Business broke the news on the more particular location that would be next to Cornerstone Barrel House on Woodward. Kind of reinforces the retail strip. One thing about Savage Fenty, and I ask people who know more than I do on this, it's much more of a affordable and accessible brand, and I wonder if it'll find the same kind of success that like the Nike store has.
I think this is going to do really well. I mean, first of all, forgive us, Jer. Rihanna, she's younger than me. She's definitely younger than you. Like, we're getting to a point where this is a little out of my league. Of course, I'm a Rihanna fan, but I feel like I grew up with her because I've been listening.
I think you're just a little bit older.
I've been listening to her music for 14 years, as long as she's been around.
She's your contemporary.
Fair enough. Contemporary with Rihanna.
There you go.
That feels good.
But we're going to rub off more cool on you than you've ever had before.
But as such, this is a big deal. I mean, Rihanna recently, I think, she's like worth $1 billion now. And like, no crap. She's worth $1 billion now. And it's this Savage Fenty collection and line that's really allowed her to get a lot of wealth. It's extremely, extremely popular. There's a cosmetic line too. I don't think that's included in the store. It's like a Fenty Beauty. I think this is the Savage Fenty is really the, like you said, the lingerie, the loungewear. It's affordable, but super done at a design level that rivals really expensive stuff, and it's also a very accessible from a size perspective. And that's something else they do. It's really big in kind of body inclusivity. They have sizes up to 4X, so it's definitely something that will be for everyone, really, for the people, and I think it'll do really well. I just think about you and I know, Jer, how that strip in Woodward is teeming with people on a weekend. I think it'll do just fine then.
I think it pairs well with all kinds of different brands that are there and that they're pulling in. Whether you've got Lululemon, you've got Warby Parker, you've got Gucci coming in. I think it even pairs well with that because you do the fancy stuff, but then you also, let's be honest, have buy more accessible things.
Yeah, and I think that also what's really interesting about this is the kind of cultural crossover. Just like Rihanna and her music, it's one of those things where the Savage Fenty line, I think it's as popular no matter how you wanted to slice the demographic pie. Yeah, this is as popular with anybody. And that kind of represents what downtown Detroit has become. It's just this amalgam of all sorts of different people from different backgrounds and places, and they can all enjoy this. So I think it's going to do really well. It's cool that you can put a flag in the ground. That's what Dan loves to do, is to stick a flag in the ground, a national name, and say, we got one of these, so we got one.
I think we still got a lot more to go.
We do, but this is a good start.
I wanted to mention really quick in suburban development news, we're mentioning about malls. I want to talk about AMC star Southfield. It apparently could become a Triumph church. Would be labeled as like a mega church, like the churches have multiple locations. Movie theaters, man. Like this is a theme. Like Cheyenne and I were talking about, imagine getting a sports book, movie theater turning into a church. Like I think we have to really look at all the repurposing that's going on because this is part of that whole change of the region thing,
Yeah, this is also the way I look at it is like this is kind of the third wave, the third era of the movie theater. In its early heyday, we think of all the movie theaters you had with like the big marquees, and it was kind of you pay for a matinee, you go in there, there's a few screens, you watch a movie. The olden days before us, Jer. But there's all these old theaters that we still talk about. The Senate Theater, Old Redford Theater, that type of era. Then we got into like the Star era, and now we're into this third wave of movie theaters where it's the movie theater as an experience. You're going to do all sorts of stuff here. You're not just going to get your popcorn and your soda. You're going to have an maybe you're going to play Topgolf. Maybe you're going to go to a bar. You're going to do this all in the theater, and that's kind of this third wave. And it's like how many things can we add to this theater experience?
Now, to be clear, this is not Jesus and theater in one thing.
No. But
although I guess you could do that, couldn't you?
You could.
That's a whole genre.
Well, why the heck not, Jer? I don't know what this church is going to be necessarily
And the Lord
about.
says silence your phones.
I don't know what this is. I don't know.
What I got to say about this, though, is that let's take bets. Are they going to get this done before that Perfecting Church at 7 Mile and Woodward gets done that got announced in 2003? That's the race. Are they going to beat Perfecting Church?
Yeah, they're going to beat Perfecting Church because that I wouldn't bet anything. Over that at this point. Something else I wanted to get to, Jer, a little bit of good news that I'm certainly happy about. The demise of Jolly Pumpkin Dearborn was exaggerated. I had speculated that it was going to come back.
That was the longboard, right?
It was the longboard. Okay. It went to the Jolly Pumpkin concept. They put out something on social media. that they are coming back. They're hoping to come back in late June, July. It seems to me, and I've talked to people about this, they really did learn from their mistakes the first time around. And if you drive by there, and I encourage you to, or if you go in that area, because there's a lot of other restaurants, they were just a little bit too far off. They were kind of on the other block that the other things weren't on, and they were hard from a visibility standpoint. So I think they're going to do a really good job of their outdoor patio. I've heard a lot of good things about the redevelopment of the patio space out there, and better signage and a more approachable menu.
I went to the Longboard. They were kind enough to have us in a couple of years ago to try the cocktail menu, and I love a good tiki drink. But I think the Longboard concept confused people. I don't think it's just the location. I think that people think Jolly Pumpkin's a certain thing, and they just, they're willing to travel for Jolly Pumpkin. They just didn't get what they were expecting. And just so people know, that's at Monroe in Michigan, like in that kind of strip there with a bunch of cool things.
A lot of cool things over there. You've got modern Greek. You've got the biryani, the Indian food. You've got bluefish sushi. And this is all also, I call this the Ford development because it's Ford.
There's even
Ford
a Ford's
built.
Garage restaurant.
There's a Ford's Garage a little bit farther down. So it's all part of the West Dearborn development that I hope people get out to. I get out there all the time. But one of my favorite coffee shop, Black Box. Give them a shout out there in that development as well.
Devon O'Reilly, I appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by the studio.
Always great to be here, Jer. And we got to talk about this 1,000th episode coming up.
Yes, a reminder for people. We have more details than if you listened last Friday. We're going to be at the Congregation from 5 to 8 p.m. on June 10th. We're going to do a thing where if you want to be indoors, cool. If you want to be outdoors, cool. In fact, a lot of our stuff's going to be outdoors underneath a little canopy or whatever, so that if there is a little bit of weather, we're okay. And people can be comfortable. And I mean, man, it's going to be June. We're going to want to enjoy this, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll be outdoors. Like you said, be outdoors or indoors. We'll be outdoors. We'll be having a good time. Come see us.
We have no word yet as to what they will design the special cocktail to be.
We'll see. Will they be more of a Randy fan and go with something rum forward? Will they be more of a Devon fan and go with something bourbon forward?
Make sure to tune in and find out. With that, thank you so much for listening. I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Devon O'Reilly.
Take care of each other. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.